Hello, Taliesin speaking, hello.
Tally, where are you? Raid started like 15 minutes ago. Is everything okay?
Hi, Evitel. Yeah, I know. I'll be there in a minute. I'm just trying to do these stupid Arathi Highland quests and they're taking forever.
What, those things? What do you mean? Aren't they just killing a few low-level mobs?
Well, yeah, that's the easy bit, but it's getting from place to place that's the problem, isn't it? Like, Arathi is huge and there's mobs everywhere all in the way, and that's before you even mention the Horde. Poor old Khadgar's been ganked like 7 times.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah, to be honest, he really needs to get back to Stromgarde to repair his gear, but Limpy can only run so fast, you know?
Taliesin, you know you can fly in Arathi, don't you?
What?
So you can just fly over all the bad stuff.
Yeah, I know that.
Okay, it's just I know you had a ground mount in your bars for Kultiris and Zandalar, so...
Yeah, I know that, Evitel. I am a professional WoW player, after all. Well, of course I know that you can fly in Arathi. I'm flying right now. Like, really high. Just me and Khadgar and Limpy. I don't think I've ever flown so high ever, actually, in the game. So I'll be in raid any second now, I promise.
Okay, just checking. See you soon.
Yeah, bye.
There is much to be done.
Hello Internet and welcome to another episode of the Weekly Reset, Taliesin and Evitel's Wondrous Wisdomshow. And I think it's fair to say that this week, Battle for Azeroth really is well and truly here for the first time. There's a reason that Blizzard had their BfA Launch toast party this week, and that's because this week, those staple features, the actual endgame loop, the things that will keep us playing for the next 2 years, went live. Raiding, Mythic Plus dungeons, and new this expansion, Warfronts, kind of. They sort of happened, more on that in a sec. So obviously there's loads to talk about this week, including exploits, bans, big massive terrible mistakes from Blizzard, a mythic raiding revolution, and a whole ton more. And we will get to all of those things, but I want to start this episode with the newest of all of those features, Warfronts, but also the launch day itself for all of this new content, which was fraught with controversy and something that's been a bit of a buzzword in BfA so far, bugs. Because man, okay, I'm not a game dev. I cannot even imagine the amount of effort and work and sacrifice it takes to get a game out on time, let alone one that will be played at the same moment by so many different people and with 14 years worth of code that you have to very carefully tiptoe through every time you want to make any kind of change. And actually, there's a pretty solid argument that says that Team 2 are the only developers in the world who do know what that feels like. These people are heroes, and I have had a blast in BfA so far, but stuff does keep happening, like the PvP season being delayed, or people reportedly getting PvP titles for doing Trial of Style, as they should in my opinion. Or the supposed exploit that allowed people to complete world quests multiple times for unlimited rewards, which Blizzard said they would fix and ban anyone using, and then the guy who revealed it was like, psych, I made it all up, and that just proves what liars you are, Blizz, because yes, screw you, Blizz, for saying that you were going to fix an exploit that someone had reported and warning others not to use the exploit in the meantime. You're idiots or something. But this week there was a particular misstep that threatened to cast all of those other blips into insignificance. Because, as we say, a whole load of new features went live this week, including, of course, our old friend Mythic Plus, the standout success story of Legion, and something that I'm actually really looking forward to even more this time out, as the BfA dungeons all seem designed with that game mode in mind. So, okay, you know when you run your Mythic Plus dungeons every week, and then the next week you get a chest with a nice piece of gear in it reflecting the highest keystone that you managed to complete? Well, some people have completed their plus 15 on the last week of Legion, and then not opened their chests the next reset. And when the new weekly chests appeared in Borealis and Dazara Lore this week with the launch of BfA Mythic Plus, they did open them, to be greeted with gear that was at the same level as if they'd run a plus 10 keystone now in BfA, which means some pretty high level loot, with some people reporting levels Titan forging up to eye level 400, which is clearly stupid and wrong on many levels. Firstly, it's clearly a mistake, a really annoying mistake that you feel should have been predictable even if it didn't crop up on beta where copy characters did this exact same thing for some reason. Secondly, it's obviously not fair. In the run up to Mythic Raiding opening next week, every piece of gear counts, and if the Uldir Mythic World First winning team has players on it who benefited from this bug in their group, then I can imagine some people might have something to say about that. And thirdly, it's actually a bit rubbish for the players getting the loot, isn't it? Because yeah, I know there are people who are just all about getting whatever competitive advantage they can by any means necessary and would be thrilled to benefit from a coding error, but honestly, the vast majority of players don't want stuff for free. They want to play the game and earn their rewards. That's where their satisfaction comes from. And on top of that, those players were also receiving plus 15 keys and above, which were kind of simultaneously OP and not fair, but also totally useless to them. All in all, this was just a genuinely bad situation, and one that could feasibly be described as Blizzard's biggest single mistake since someone put their hand up in a storytelling meeting one day and said, okay, so his name is Madan, and he's got like all of the powers. Or at least, so it seemed in the moments we learned about it. I mean, I felt like it was a really big deal. I was talking to Evie and I said, oh my god, I can't believe this is so bad. They're gonna have to roll back the servers. Like, that's their only way out of this. This is crazy and massive. But of course it wasn't, largely because of how quickly Blizzard acted on it. The weekly cache was hotfixed out within 30 minutes, and the relatively tiny amount of players that had already opened it got an in-game mail telling them that it was a mistake and that they would be losing the item. And no, taking away loot is never going to feel good. And no, it shouldn't have happened. But in the end, less World of Warcraft players were inconvenienced by this than there would have been if there had been a 20-minute power cut in Copenhagen that day. And this was pretty much the reaction on the forums too, I think. I mean, to be honest, I hardly saw any reaction to it on the forums at all. Most people were much more concerned with stuff that did affect them, like the new raid, or actually running some Mythic Plus, or no, it was a shit show, obviously. Another day, another cluster flick. F you, Blizz. Screw Blizzard for fuss, what are they doing? I guess now they'll have to award everyone with a free 15 cash. This is some serious bullshit. Some scrubs achieved to benefit from the issue without being rolled back. Report Blizzard for being scrubs as well. I'm glad people without jobs get free 380 gear while us contributing to society and paying taxes get effed. Maybe Blizz should focus on product quality instead of diversity. Yeah, you know what? That's true. This coding error happened because there was no Warbringer starring a male character this expansion. I guess the fear of missing out really is as strong as they say. Having said all that, there are still clearly bugs in the Mythic Plus system. I've run around 18 so far, and a number of times we completed a keystone in time only to have it downgrade. So it's not like everything is fixed now, but speaking as a taxpayer, I can say it's probably not the end of the world. And if Mythic Plus didn't roll out quite as smoothly as Blizzard would have liked, what about the long-awaited Warfronts? Because Warfronts are something I've been down on in this channel in the past. When BfA was announced at BlizzCon, I predicted on Patrick Beja's Pixels podcast that they would be the feature most likely to be cut before launch. Oh yeah, we were on Pixels. I mean, it's no big deal. I don't know why you even brought it up, to be honest. And for the longest time, the fact that no one really understood what Warfronts were exactly or how they were supposed to work was a go-to standard joke for us. And then on beta, when I played them, I found them fun, but a little bit underwhelming and not something I'd be keen to repeat too often. Although, to be fair, that could have been because the lag was so bad that it took me genuinely 5 minutes to chop a single piece of wood, which was frankly a bit too much like real life for me, thanks. And so I guess you'd expect me now to glory in the total vindication of how rubbish they are now they're here. Well, the truth is, I can't, because we just don't know. At the time of writing, neither US nor EU servers have actually unlocked the Warfront scenario. As I say these words, no one has played this feature on live yet. And even I wouldn't give my opinion on something that doesn't exist yet, except Teen Titans. I think that's probably gonna suck. But apart from that, I just wouldn't. But what I can talk about is the lead up to it and what was actually there on reset day. I played through it first as Alliance, who are currently in control of Arathi, and it's actually pretty good. You wander around, you see everything, and then you run, fly. What kind of an idiot would try and walk around Arathi? That would be stupid. No, you fly about it with a whole ton of people and complete some really basic quests, which are essentially just killing stuff, but it's really fun because there's loads of people doing them and they're dropping sweet loot. And then you kill your extra bonus world boss, and then you head back to base and wait for the attack to start and hope that it doesn't start before you get to do it all again next week. The Horde side is a lot more simple. You're just scouting around Arathi a little bit, bit, because of course your main job is to give in randomized resources to various guys in Zandalar to fill that bar and actually start the Warfront. Interesting note about the resource progress, by the way. US and EU have their own progress bars, and last time I checked, EU servers were actually ahead of the US, even though they started a day later, which would suggest that the resources you're giving in do actually have an effect. I still can't imagine it's completely tied solely to resource donations, but still. And overall, I thought that as a scene setter, it was actually pretty effective. It feels like there is genuine trouble brewing. It feels like there's a war going on, and the new Arathi is actually really beautiful and detailed and well realized. It's essentially a whole new zone, and it's great. When I found the graveyard that the Alliance had made for the Forsaken characters that died at the end of Before the Storm, I genuinely got a little bit emotional because it's got all their names and personal effect, and you know I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff, and it's actually just really, really good world building. As scene setters go, it's incredibly effective, and it's important to remember that's all it is. Okay, we got them done in almost 2 hours. Yes, main content of the expansion, which promises to be so much fun and a thing to pull people in, done within only 2 hours. GG Blizzard. No, you see, you haven't done it. No one has. That's clearly written by an Alliance player, and it's worth pointing out that it's Horde doing the Warfronts right now. That 2 hours of content you did, that's not even your turn. That's just stuff to do. But here's the thing, whoever wrote that comment, I don't blame them for not understanding. I've been joking about how no one understands Warfronts for 10 months now, and they are clearly something which is still confusing, because that comment was one of many on multiple threads. I feel like Blizzard have done a really bad job of communicating this feature to players from the start, but especially now in-game. You know, we could really have benefited from maybe a little cutscene like we get in our capitals to explain the basic story of the 3 leveling zones. Those were great. Something like that just flat out explains to us this entirely new and quite involved gameplay feature would have been super helpful. But since that hasn't happened, allow me to explain things to you as best I can. Warfronts are on a cycle. One faction has control of the area. That's the Alliance right now. You've got to start somewhere. They have essentially free run of Arathi. So those 2 hours of missions that the poster talked about, although I'm going to call it more like an hour to be honest, I think someone may have forgotten that they could fly in Arathi, and honestly, what kind of an idiot would do that? And that world boss that only they can kill. Awesome. Meanwhile, the Horde want to be in control, so they are currently giving in resources to fill that bar, and when they do, they get to play the Warfront scenario. That's the actual content we're talking about here. That is the epic multiplayer scenario that is part WoW, part RTS, part MOBA, and sees you gathering your forces, gathering resources, spawning troops, launching a full-on attack on Stromgarde, and killing the Alliance commander for 370 loot. And then after that's been up for a bit, we swap places. The Horde now control the area thanks to that big attack you just did in the Warfront, so they get the missions and the world boss, and the Alliance start to give resources to fill up their bar to unlock the Warfront that they can play in. And when they do, they kick the Horde's ass, and it swaps around again, forever, because that's war, kids. It's just one thing after another, and no one wins. War is bad. Now, does all this mean that I'm a little bit more optimistic about Warfronts themselves? Well, a little, yeah. This introduction certainly does make it feel like a big event. I love how the zone has been changed. There's a definite eve of battle feel about it all, which I find quite exciting. Obviously, I'll have to wait and see for the scenarios themselves. I know they're not supposed to be content that you repeat all that much, so as long as that initial playthrough is fun, in and of itself, that'll be enough for me, I guess. The issue comes with how much grinding I'm going to have to do for those sweet, sweet armor sets. We'll look forward to telling you all about it next week.
And so to Uldir, because yes, there may be excitement and confusion over other parts of the game this week, but surely this is what it's all about. Arguably the most important content in the game, the content that rarely, if ever, lets you down, the content that even WoW's biggest detractors admit it does better than anyone else, and Blizzard seem pretty confident in their new raid too, because let's be honest, you don't call your flagship content something that can be so easily punched to "oh dear" unless you're fairly sure that's a pun that people won't ever feel the need to make. We've already done a video this week talking about the story of Uldir and the lore behind the bosses there, which you might need especially if you're an Alliance player because you've received next to no indication in-game that anything is happening in the Heart of Darkness at all, least of all a potentially world-ending old god thing that must be stopped at all costs. When you do the other factions' dungeons, at least there's something, like the Order of Embers guys saying, "Hang on, who are you?" It doesn't matter, let's kill shit, to Horde Horde players in Waycrest Manor, but Alliance players in Uldir don't even get that. But anyway, on the off chance that Alliance players just so happen to find themselves in an old Titan Old God experimental facility, and by complete coincidence are grouped with 20 or so appropriately equipped friends and feel like raiding some fools, then both factions can now jump into the normal and heroic versions of an instance which is really stunning to look at. I mean, maybe I'm an easy sell because if it wasn't all green, I was almost guaranteed to like it a bit. But honestly, that moment when you enter the facility properly and see right across the space below to the boss you'll eventually get to is awesome. And the cool visuals don't stop there, as you loot awesome neon weapons to really round off your Tron transmog, or collect one of the 4 raid sets, which, with the best will in the world, is never gonna be as good as 12 raid sets, and which honestly you really need to see modeled by a troll to get the full effect. Face off against foes like Macey Boy with his glowing mace. Well, his 2 maces actually. Khor, Hammer of the Corrupted, which is a beefy 355 plus 2-hander on normal mode, not to be confused with Khor, Hammer of the Guardian, which was a 350 2-hander but was only supposed to be a cosmetic item usable by everyone, so Blizzard later reduced the item level down to 140 to reflect that. Unfortunately, that meant that at least some players had looted the Guardian mace at 350, thought, excellent, a new weapon, thanks Blizz, discarded their old weapon, and then the next day woke up to find their brand new weapon was now the same level as something you can pick up from Hellfire Citadel. Oh dear. Or Pug Killer, Mother, the second boss of the raid that is unfairly and mercilessly killing pug groups by selfishly demanding that some level of group coordination happen. In a raid of all places. Oh dear. Actually, so far, Uldir does seem like a raid specifically designed to make life difficult for random pug groups, with Vectis and Zek'voz, and of course G'huun also needing a fair amount of communication and organization, even on normal mode. For me, I don't really see the problem with this. Blizzard have always said that normal is the first level for casual and friends and family groups, all of whom you'd expect to have at least some kind of coordination and be able to survive multiple wipes without the group collapsing. That kind of player still wants to be challenged on their own level. You want to kill bosses in a pug you have no intention of coordinating with? Awesome. There's a game mode for that. It's called LFR, the first wing of which will be opening next week alongside the all-important Mythic version. A Mythic version that Method have announced that they will be streaming live, which is actually a pretty important announcement. The Mythic world first race of any new raid is such a big deal to those at the top end, involving tens of thousands of man-hours, incredible stamina, and no little skill, that streaming their progress live is just something the actual contenders have never really done before, for obvious reasons. If you're streaming and your closest rivals aren't, then by following your progress and the strats you're trying, that clearly gives your rivals an advantage. That's why the race has always been tantalizingly mysterious and difficult to follow, waiting for tweets from the raiders involved, or hanging on WoW progress updates like someone following a football game on CFAX in the 1980s. But now that mystery seems like it's going to be swept away. This is a pretty ballsy move from Method. Sure, they'll get a gabillion viewers on Twitch and make all of the money in the world, but will other guilds be able to use this setup to their advantage and gain a deciding upper hand in progress? Will Method end up saying, oh dear? Method obviously think they don't really have any rivals, and to be honest, they are probably right. Only Exorcists have come close in recent times. For the rest of us, don't forget there's always the new Hall of Fame achievement, which I think is really cool. The first 100 guild groups on either faction to kill Mythic G'huun will get an achievement, and even better, the famed Slayer of G'huun title too. If that title is limited to players who were there for the kill rather than the whole guild roster, then that's maximum 4,000 players worldwide that can get it, and let's be honest, if you're in seriously any Alliance Mythic guild, you've really got to fancy your chances, haven't you? Like, those top 100 Horde spots will be super competitive and go relatively quickly, but the Alliance side is going to be a lot more open, so go for it. And seriously, really do go for it, because it's not until the top 100 Horde and Alliance places are filled that cross-realm Mythic raiding is enabled. So, for all our sakes, get out there and kill that old god, not old god thing. We're going to link WoWhead's exhaustive raid guides in the description below to help you on your way, as well as articles covering everything we've talked about today, from Warfronts, Mythic Plus, Khor, and also something we find really useful, your daily and weekly BfA checklist. Because if all the confusion about Warfronts this week has proven anything, it's that all the new content unlocking this week has been slightly confusing for some players. Either because of bad communication on Blizzard's part, or just because there really was quite a lot of it.
So serious question, this
Yes.
is a serious matter.
Yes.
Did you exploit this week, World Quests. Did you cheat like the cheaters did?
Well, when you put it that way, I was going to say I exploited things, but when you say cheat, I definitely did not cheat.
That's exactly what someone who did an exploit would say. That's exactly what they would say.
Yeah, okay, I didn't do anything.
Like the guy who was like, oh, this is an exploit, everyone. And then Blizzard was like, we're going to ban people who do this. And then he was like, oh, fooled you, not an exploit. And it's like, I feel like someone's just making up an excuse as to why they exploited.
My favorite was like, it's your fault for making it easy for me to cheat. Did you exploit any exploits?
No, I don't even know. I'm always late on this stuff. But I want you to know that I totally would have done if I'd known about it.
Yeah.
I would have Magar Orcs and Dark-Iron Dwarves. And what else could I have got? Like, I just do all my reps, basically.
Everything.
And so much Expulsum.
Yeah.
I'd have so much Expulsum. I'd built a house out of Expulsum, and then I would have crafted cool shit out of my house, and I wouldn't have had a housing wall, but I wouldn't have cared because I'd be rich AF from all the stuff that I just sold in the auction house.
I would cheat for Expulsum.
We raided.
Yeah.
You raided.
I raided.
With your OP BM. Ruling.
I personally am not OP.
I want you to know that
I'm OP on trash mobs. I am amazing on trash mobs.
I wanted you to know that you did. I want everyone to know that you did well in raid. But it has literally nothing to do with your skill. It was just because BM is OP.
Yeah.
And it was really weird because we went in on Thursday night, as is our guild's tradition. But that's all we're going to do for like another week because we're going on guild holiday
tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Like by the time you watch this, we'll be like hopefully we'll have gone up in the air and landed safely.
Yeah.
And we'll be catching some raids.
I know we planned not catching some raids though.
You played with words like Shakespeare. You're exactly like Shakespeare.
I'm not even.
Were you going to try and make like a sonnet about BM then? Were you going to try and rhyme something with BM?
Yeah.
Go, I'll wait.
Anyway, we planned our guild holiday in like January, February, and it was all pretty uncertain. And then when, BFA release dates started circulating as rumors, we were like,
I don't mind. And we did really well. We only did normal because we were only jumping in for the night, so rather than start anything proper. And we took it very slow. And we bopped through all the way to Zool.
Yeah,
which was great.
It was fun.
And Zool kicked our ass, but we only tried it twice.
Yeah, Zool's ads kicked our ass.
Which was pretty good for like less than 3 hours, I thought. So, and what do you think of it? In fact, the Mythic first race might even be over by the time we get back.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
From Guild Holiday. Count your lucky stars method, because if it wasn't for Immortalis being on Guild Holiday, oh my word, you would be, gosh. Thank you for joining us today though. If you enjoyed this video, don't thank us. Thank our patrons who give their actual real life money to make these videos happen. Patrons, thank you. Oh, do you know what? I hoovered the office and I cleaned up, so when we get back, we can do like the office tour from patrons.
Oh yeah.
Like we've been promising for a week or so. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is Jinsey.
Oh. Wait though, Jinsey does not talk about Warcraft and she's not YouTubing anymore.
She does neither of those things anymore.
No, so you clearly cannot be Jinsey.
It was more wishful thinking.
Oh. I'd be okay with it.
Me too. From me, Taliesin.
And me, Evitel.
Until next time, cheerio.